please. Ladies and gentlemen, please.
He wears a beard to a stockholders' meeting. He denies a resemblance to Santa Claus, but he does lend a paternalistic ear to his critics.
Will you make sure the microphone's down a little bit so Mr. Davis can be heard more clearly?
I don't think there's anything wrong. I think it's the audio system, Mr. Chairman. There's something wrong with it. One of your flunkies must have pushed a button that it's not up.
Now, the only one who can push a button is me, and I can shut you off right here.
But, Mr. Chairman, just like I can speak from memory, I can also speak very well without microphones. You see, I have a memory even without my
You've
notes.
got a much better memory than I do.
Well, there you are. You can't have everything in life, Mr. Ford.
Among the things that stand between Henry Ford and happiness are the politicians and bureaucrats of Washington.
We have never up to this day, and that's 10 years, been able to make the Congress understand, and they've been out here and we've been down there continuously, that the gestation period of an automobile is a lot longer than they think it is.
Why are you dealing with just the new car? You know, if you want to accomplish what you're trying to accomplish, and you say taxes are the way to go, fine. Why don't you put a road tax on for all the cars on the road? You know, if some guy's driving around in a car getting 12 miles a gallon, he's going to pay a couple $100 tax to put a sticker in the goddamn windshield. You know, I'll tell you why they won't do that. Because there are millions of people out there that own those cars, and they all got a vote. So they'll never do it. So they're going to try to twist the whole thing by having dealing just with us on new cars yet to be designed and yet to be manufactured, and trying to solve the whole fuel economy equation with just the new cars that get added to the population of 100 million babies already out there. And that's what I think is so nutty.
They argue that they are reasonable men, doing their level best to obey reasonable laws.
Real nervous. You can have some social reformers having us all riding around wheelbarrows before we're through.
To prove that they are men of good faith, the car companies invite the lawmakers into their most secret chambers.
We're working on window regulator handles, bucket seats, headliners, even drip moldings to take the weight out of it.
They claim that if Washington enacts all the laws proposed by their loud and insistent critics, the car companies will simply go broke.
This fall. And this is the start of massive downsizing of our cars. You can see here without...
The Secretary of Transportation, Mr. Coleman, is small, black, and immensely powerful. In his presence, even Lee Iacocca of the House of Ford is prepared to fly the flag of truce and have lunch with General Motors.
Hi, Lee. Good to see you. Sorry, I always forget about that.
Oh, you can shake hard now.
Hello, Lee.
I'll be downstairs in the next day. How about Mr. Iacocca and me coming together? That wouldn't be quite lock us up.
Hello, Lee.
Tell me on statutory authority. If you sit in the same room with me and drink with me, you guys can get barred.
While the car companies claim that they are merely simple merchants trying to make an honest dollar, their critics claim that they can also be a dangerous political force with influence far beyond the United States.
GM and fascists work hand in hand. GM and fascists work hand in hand.
General Motors, already defending itself against charges of past collaboration with Nazi Germany, now stands accused of supporting the fascist regime in Chile by continuing to make cars in that malevolent dictatorship.
I think we ought to put this in perspective. You know, Chile is really not all that important in any context, but I think the church group has put us in a position, no matter which way we go, we're going to make some people unhappy.
We're concerned about workers' rights, and we're concerned about the fact that the dictatorship in Chile at the present time is eroding basic workers' rights to the point of investigatory torture and imprisonment and so on.
And how many shares does the United Church have?
Church holds 4,000 shares. It's not a large amount, but it's significant.
Microphone number 4.
Mr. Chairman, Reverend Leonard Harbour from St. Catharines, Canada, a proxy holder, wishes to address the meeting on this proposal.
Mr. Chairman, my name is Len Harbour. It is appropriate that to the best of my knowledge, this is the first time a Canadian institutional shareholder, has appeared at the annual meeting of an American corporation. We believe that from those to whom much has been given, much will be expected.
The captains and kings of Detroit have good reason to be dispirited. A Gallup poll has shown that the car dealer, new or used, is the businessman Americans most distrust.
Is the automobile here to stay?
It better be. Oh, yeah, it's here to stay for this century, no question about it. I mean, it's an automobile as... well, we look at it and say it's 15,000 parts, but ask any teenager what it is.
Down through the generations, it has indeed been the American teenager who has best understood the deeper meanings of the motoring age. For they were the first to realize the possibilities of the rumble seat and to discover the irresistible mating call of the motoring horn. A cornerstone of American morality, the difficulty of finding a suitable place for misconduct had been forever blown away. Here at last was a private place that could be moved at will to quiet country lanes. Even the moon could be maneuvered into place. And with a little ingenuity and suppleness of limb, all things at last were possible. It is not surprising that all manner of man still marvels at these chariots of love.
You're getting it too shiny almost.
I think.
Yeah, look at.
Yeah, no, I got to redo the whole thing, but I want to do, just do a little spot and check the luster in it. That's what I was, I would rather mess up a little spot so I can always dull it down.
Although most teenagers now make love in bed, the role of the motor car in the sexual revolution of America is undiminished. It provides each male with his territory, and in the animal kingdom, it is the territory and not sex appeal that lures the female of the species.
It's a Chevy.
All the motor heads come to meet together. I don't know.
These guys are crazy. I don't know.
No. Oh boy, we got another live one. So what do you think of our hot rods, man?
As a vehicle for self-advertisement, the motor car is not limited to the teenager. Nudie the tailor, who used to make G-strings for chorus girls, wants the world to know that he now makes cowboy clothes for dude ranches. This car was recently driven down Hollywood Boulevard to prove that at least in California, it is now possible to go to town in a bathtub. The Bathmobile now revolves in a car museum built to enshrine the immortal concoctions of the greatest car customizer in all the world. In a nondescript garage in North Hollywood, George Barris makes dreams come true.
I can't believe these guys. Turkeys all over the place.
Esquire magazine thinks he looks like Picasso. Some call his style streamlined Baroque. Others say his work is a Dionysian extension of the ego. His customers include Steve McQueen, Liberace, and Batman. Disciples from far-off Australia study at the master's side.
but I'm trying to teach you, Tulip, not to do things like this here. You won't have that problem.
We sculpture, we create, and we give illusions of what we feel in our mind. Instead of doing it on canvas, we do it on automobiles. We do it in steel, we use plastic, fiberglass, whatever form that we're working with, and we create an artistic form on four wheels, which becomes a functional thing that you can use. Like, for example, when I designed and built the cars for Sonny and Cher, you just don't call Sonny and Cher's manager and say, well, they want a car. I go to Sonny and Cher's home. We socialize. I find out what they like as far as colors, materials, what their personality is, what they feel like about a car, because a car is a second part of a person's life.
Like all good religions, the car cult has many rituals.
Bring your 1/4 for that Chevy glove. Got your ears on? Come on.
On Van Nuys Boulevard in Los Angeles, it is a spontaneous gathering each Wednesday night of some 10,000 perfect strangers.
No, we don't need no hands. Action! Woo! Hello, Mama. Got it now. Come on, Frank, hang it out.
It's like part of me, you know. We were almost identical to each other. Like, I wasn't recognized either unless I had my car, you know. And then it came, like, you know, people would recognize me without my car. And a lot of people would call me by my name. And I didn't know them, you know. Well, I really had nothing going for me. You know, it hurt me a lot, you know, to think about, well, I got big teeth, you know, I got big ears. I lost all my self-consciousness, and I don't care if I got big teeth. At least I got my own teeth, you know. And then I said, I don't care if I got big ears. I can hear with them.
Mandy Pearson of Windsor, Ontario, makes $100 a week and spends 40 of it on gasoline. She drives her Mustang around for 8 hours a day and spends another couple of hours keeping it clean.
Like, if it was cold and all that, out, it's got frost on it, and they'll write on it. One guy last year left me a message telling me he loved me. Yeah, I tried to get it right out of the paint, but it wouldn't come out. I tried wax, compound, everything, it wouldn't come out. I can't even remember the guy's name now. Somebody ran into me once, backing out of the driveway. And I saw him coming and I couldn't do anything. I just beat my horn. I couldn't back up because there was somebody behind me. I felt so bad. And I felt like crying almost. And when they smashed my window, I did cry in the back of the cop car. You know. Because it really, like, it hurt my car and it hurt me at the same time. Terrible.
In the middle of Detroit is a singular vision of the car culture. It fills 4 walls of the Great Hall of the Institute of Art. The mural deals with the assembly line as a mechanical masterpiece, a place where tourists are taken to watch the men at their marvelous work. But it was painted in the Depression days of 1932, and the Mexican artist Diego Rivera also saw the assembly line as a dark instrument of oppression. To feed the appetites of the motoring age, Henry Ford had begun to accelerate the speed of the line, and men who could not keep up the pace began to break apart. The murals were commissioned by Henry's tragic son Edsel, and perhaps it was his way of reminding future generations that if the forces his father had unleashed were left unchecked, they could play havoc with the dignity of the working man and the quality of life at large. moves at a humane speed and is automated to make the job even easier. The monotonous repetition still tears at the nerves of some workers, but Henry Ford II has established a good working relationship with organized labor. His policies have been enlightened and innovative, and he has pioneered in the creation of equal opportunity for the black worker. But despite the decent conditions, some men like Dudley Pearson, who came up from Mississippi 18 years ago, now want to go home.
Well, right now, I don't compare here with no ways of Mississippi because I have made quite a few visits back down there since I've been here, and it's been so much improvements and all. And right now, I'd rather be there than be here for the living part. And if all the time we go down there, my children and all, they don't ever want to leave.
Coming down after you, baby.
It is not the assembly line, however, that will drive Dudley Pearson back to Mississippi. It is the world outside. The center of the city that spawned the automotive age is a ruptured wasteland where you can buy a house for $50. The well-to-do have jumped in their motor cars and fled to the land of the suburb and the supermarket, taking their tax dollars with them. The awful vacuum that remains is filled with a poor, confused migrant population drawn to Detroit by the elusive promise of big money. Deserted and disillusioned, many of them turn to hard drugs and naked violence in a city now too poor to pay for a proper police force. Prowling the ruins of race riots and gang wars are the creatures of the inner city that have stabbed, strangled, and shot 1,700 private citizens to death in the past 2 years. And so Henry Ford's hometown became known as Murder City. The car companies began to realize that they must come to grips with the embarrassing ruin that lay around them.
Jacobson.
Oh, yeah.
He was going to try to get Jacobson's here, and we were fussing about the access. Well, the access he's talking about is from the parking lot that's going to get finished over there up into here. Now, this gets done last. There's a hell of a lot to do.
Henry Ford has led the bold movement to bring Detroit back to life. The bright towers of their Renaissance Center have been created as an economic and psychological beacon to draw man and business back into the inner core. Perhaps Henry Ford can help save Detroit, but what of the accusations that the motor car has disfigured the face of the earth in general? In order to accommodate the automobile, 65% of Los Angeles County is now under concrete. General Motors has been accused of buying up mass transit systems in many cities for the purpose of replacing them with even more of their motor cars. The American air is befouled by so much poisonous gas that school children have been asked not to exercise for fear of breathing too hard. Henry Ford could rightfully reply that automotive pollution has been cut by 80%, that he once advocated a hike in gas taxes to help the poor and the unemployed, and that the highway is not a creature of rampant capitalistic greed, but the only possible means of getting America to where it wants to go.
I don't know what the country would be like without the automobile. I can't imagine it. You know, this country really has been built within the last 75 years, whereas Europe was built hundreds of years ago, basically, the larger cities. And when people talk about mass transit, it always bothers me to think that we can do with mass transit what the people in Europe can do with mass transit, because we can't. Our whole society has been built on the automobile, whereas their cities and environment has all been built before the automobile. The automobile was an addition over there.
Any American, any Canadian, one of his real great assets that he has is the highway system that he can use for free. The highway system is worth $485 billion, and anybody can use it who has the key. And what is the key? The key is not a bicycle. The key has to be an automobile of some kind.
There have been attempts to reduce the number of cars on the road. In Los Angeles, they tried to limit one lane of a single freeway to cars with 3 or more passengers. This brought a cry of outrage from the motorist.
After all, the guy in his car alone paid just as much for his gasoline and just as much for the freeway as anybody else.
The fact that police were now peering into a man's motor car to count the number of heads was considered a breach of the American birthright and brought forth a demonstration of American ingenuity. As an engine of death, the motor car has no equal. In its short history, millions of North Americans have suffered ruptured spleens, crushed kidneys, shattered hip bones, punctured hearts, and snapped spinal cords. 2 million of them have died. By the 1990s, another million will be killed, bringing the 100-year total to 3 million, or roughly 4 times the number killed in all of America's wars combined. And yet the American motorist is not keen on restrictions. The airbag was patented in 1952, but hardly anybody uses it. Ford tried introducing seat belts in 1956, and everybody went out and bought a Chevrolet. The danger of driving a car has been compared to balancing in the parapet of a 12-story building in a high wind. And yet it's quite simple for a 16-year-old to get himself a driver's license.
You'll start a totally new life when you believe in Jesus Christ. Open your heart to Him and receive Him as your own Lord and your Savior.
And I invite you to do that now in a closing prayer. Almighty God, in this congregation and across America.
Some years ago, Reverend Robert Schuller noticed that his church was empty and moved into a drive-in theater. The automobile, he discovered, was a popular place to contemplate the hereafter. He soon had the biggest drive-in church in the world.
And he did this.
A person's guard is down in his car. Perhaps you've had the experience of knowing someone who's a stranger. You probably even had a tension between the two of you. Maybe there was competitiveness, maybe jealousy, there was a tension. Then on a certain occasion, the two of you had a ride together in the same car to go someplace. Strangely enough, by the time you reached your destination, you felt friendly with him. There's something about a car that, because of its smallness, I suspect, forces an intimacy that causes the man-made psychic barriers to be diminished, and suddenly we communicate. Smiling, loving, reaching, and their heart melts, and their soul is saved.
To some men, a place to meet with God. To others, an instrument of the devil. A simple machine that seems to defy description. But whatever it is, Henry Ford plans to keep on making it until such time as America decides on some other form of civilization.